Welcome to FPL Selection. I've decided to push the wildcard button for game week 22, so today we'll go through my first draft and reasoning for each pick. Like and subscribe if you enjoy the video. Thanks. So I came to the conclusion for pressing the wildcard that I had quite a few moves that I wanted to make up until sort of game week 24. I think there's quite a few nice fixture runs coming up, and I probably need 2 hits to get to the team that I ideally wanted. I only had 2 free transfers in the bank, and I was pretty set on getting Rice and Bruno Fernandes for game week 22. Then I sort of figured out where I want to get to, and I just saw that, I was going to have to take the 2 hits. I'd be 1 transfer every week. I still wouldn't have anything in the bank, even with that team that I was looking for. So I felt like I could wildcard, I could bring in the 6-7 players that I wanted to, and still have 2 free transfers in the bank, and easily I can build those up to 5 free transfers in the coming weeks with a sort of, well-balanced squad. And it just seemed to make sense to me. I almost pulled it last week, which would have been a mixed result, to be honest, as I probably would have got Bruno Guimaraes, but in the end, it worked out okay, just waiting for this week. And it's quite nice having the sort of 9-10 days until the following weekend, just have a really good think about things, try and get a few price rises, and yeah, that's where I'm at the moment. So I'm recording this at halftime in the Liverpool-Arsenal game, so yeah, I'm not really sure where I'm going to end up rank-wise for game week 21, but I'll talk about that more in the team selection next week. And so for me, this wildcard, I think the main teams I was looking at was Chelsea and Arsenal. They've got some great fixture runs. I think Arsenal obviously have been the best team in the league. It's important to have 3 of their assets for, sort of probably the rest of the season now, I'd say. Rice was someone that I've been looking at for many, many weeks now, and I've always ended up just picking somebody else a little bit, what I felt was a bit more exciting. But he's just ticked over all season. He's definitely playing a lot further forward now. With Zubimendi there sitting, it's just allowing him to get forward, get in the box. He's scoring quite a few this season. So he's on the set pieces. He gets DEFCON quite regularly. So yeah, it's quite similar to Bruno Fernandes, really. Just got so many ways to score points. And I think it just got to get him in now and just leave him there for the rest of the season. And, he should total up quite nicely, really, for 7.2 million. So yeah, I think it was just kind of the extra Arsenal and getting the Chelsea boys in. That required obviously getting rid of Mark Gue. Obviously was holding up back a space. And then the other team that I was quite interested in was Sunderland. They've got a really nice run of fixtures over the next sort of 8-9 weeks. And I've been benching Alderete almost every week. But I just think for the low price of 4 and 4.3 for Alderete and Mukiele, it just made sense to have 2 of them and just take a little gamble. And that's kind of what's enabled me to get the really strong midfield. So if I just go through the team quickly, Sanchez is staying. Like I said, Chelsea have got a really nice run of fixtures, basically from now until game week 28. So wanted to have one of their defenders. Sanchez, the cheapest, that's probably the most likely to play all the games. So yeah, for me, it just made sense to keep him in. I've got Senesi still in there at the moment, and that's definitely one of my sort of more debatable picks at the moment. I've just kept him in because I've got quite a bit of value stocked up in him. But again, he proved last week sort of, he's got so many ways to score points. He's had a few assists this season, a few goals, gets DEFCON almost every week. So if Bournemouth can turn it round, then, he's going to be a nice player to have in the squad. I don't think he's going to start many games for me for the next sort of 8 to 10 weeks. But I just kind of like having that explosive option on the bench. You've got a good chance he's going to get 3 or 4 points. Might end up with more. So if I ever do need him, just think he's always got that, explosivity that he could get something in any given week. As I said, Mukiele's in. He's only 4.3. Sunderland have got a great run of fixtures. I've got Alderete first on my bench at the moment, but most likely I'm going to start him and Mukiele most weeks up until, I think it's the Arsenal fixture 25, I think it is. And that's where I'd use Senesi and Rodon. You can see Rodon there as sort of my budget enabler, sitting last on my bench. I think they've got Forest away in the week that I'd need him. So yeah, I don't think that's a bad shout for someone who, is quite good for hitting DEFCON, and he's had a few goals this season as well. Gabriel's in. I don't think I need to explain that one. The best defender in the game easily. And there was no chance I'd be going without him. Saka stays as well. I think he is probably a little bit overpriced, but I just love his consistency. He always gets something, pretty much every week. If you go back to sort of, can't remember exactly when I brought him in, but probably around game week 10, I'd say, something like that. He's got returns almost every week. So it does add up over time. He's just very consistent. And yeah, like I said, Arsenal got great fixtures and potentially a double in game week 26 as well. If they get past Chelsea in the League Cup, it might bring forward one of their fixtures because they're most likely not going to be in the Champions League playoffs. So, that'd be probably a captain Saka that week if they do get the double. And as I mentioned earlier, I've gone for Rice as well. Just think he's been so consistent this season. And I really like those players that you can set and forget, which I think, him alongside Fernandes and Saka. Yeah, it's 3 players that I'm probably just going to keep for the rest of the season almost until we get to the doubles later on. Been brilliant this season, and yeah, I think it's going to be nice having that double Arsenal attack, especially if we get that double in 26. And there's plenty of good fixtures to come before that as well. Then Bruno Fernandes is in, maybe 2 weeks early for him, but I just think he can score in any game. He's proven that over the years. He can always turn up in the big games. City is at home, so potentially a new manager as well, or at least a caretaker. So he's going to want to prove a point. He might end up playing further forward as well. Certainly did against Burnley last night, so might be in the number 10 position, a bit closer to goal. And we all know what happens when he plays close to goal. He just gets in the box, he gets his shots off. Yeah, he had a few good chances against Burnley. Got 1 assist, picked up 2 bonus. Yeah, he's just so good at picking up points. He's got so many ways to do it. Yeah, he's another long-term pick for me. Palmer and Enzo, the 2 Chelsea midfielders, decided to double up there with a good run of fixtures. Palmer's been a bit hit and miss since he's come back from injury, but I mean, that's understandable. Getting up to speed sort of mid-season is always difficult. He's had quite a few returns. I think it's 4 returns in 6 games now. He's had a few early subs as well, so hopefully with sort of the 9-10 day gap now between games, that'll give him a real good chance to have a little rest, keep himself, building up his fitness levels. And the new manager coming in, he's going to want to prove a point, and seems like, there's a good chance he might end up playing on the right and sort of cutting him, which I think is his best position. So, yeah, definitely very bullish on Palmer. And Enzo's had great stats as well. He's had a few returns recently. I did own him earlier in the season. He was a bit frustrating, but he would always get in the good positions. He'd always get shots off every match. I think he's the second best for non-penalty expected goals this season, just behind Haaland, which did shock me when I saw that the other day. So, yeah, once I saw that, I kind of backed up my thought that I want to have double Chelsea attack. He's probably the most reliable, to start most of the games. I will take a look at the likes of Esteval, Pedro Neto, just see whether I think there might be worth it instead as a little bit more of a differential, but at the minute it'll be Enzo coming in alongside Palmer. Then up front, no changes. I think Haaland's pretty straightforward. No one's going to take him out at this point, even though we've had a few blanks from him. But yeah, I don't see him coming out anytime soon. Thiago, really happy. I've been patient with him. I think he's just a set and forget for the rest of the season. I said that many weeks ago as well. He's a penalty taking talisman, relatively cheap if you got him in sort of around the 6.5 million mark. He's going to play every game. He's going to always be the main source of goals for Brentford. So, yeah, I think it just makes sense to keep him. And, yeah, there's not really any other sort of exciting forward options at the minute that I think, you'd want to drop either Haaland or Thiago for. I've got Mane from Wolves as my third forward. I mean, he's going to sit on the bench most weeks, but only 4.5 million. He scored quite a few points recently. He started the last 5, I think, for Wolves. So I think he's going to continue to play. Looks really good. He's a nice one just to sit on the bench. 4.5 million. Can't ask for more than someone that's going to play, start every match and pick up some returns here and there. So, yeah, I think he's a nice pick. And then Dubravka's the obvious second goalkeeper at 4 million. Had him all season. And, yeah, he'll do his bit here and there if I ever need to bench Sanchez. So, yeah, that's the draft at the moment. The other players I've sort of got in mind are maybe doubling up on the Arsenal defence. So I'd probably look to go Timber or Calafiori. Obviously, Calafiori need to see a little bit more news, as to when he's going to be back from injury. But then that would mean having to drop Saka or Rice, which I'm not that keen on at the moment. But one to think about. Munoz at Palace potentially could be back soon. Obviously, never ideal bringing back a player coming back from injury, but he was so good earlier in the season, and he's been great ever since he's been at Palace, really, and great FPL asset. So yeah, he's one I'm keeping in mind, but sort of budget wise, it's hard to fit him in when I've got quite an expensive midfield and forward line. But I'm certainly not going to drop Gabriel. So yeah, that's a tricky one. Bruno Guimaraes, he's really frustrated me. A couple of my mini leagues, he's really just stopping me making any progress. But just don't think the Newcastle fixtures are that great for the next sort of 8 to 10 weeks. And I just can't find a place for him. Maybe I could put him in instead of Enzo, but I would need to find the budget from somewhere, which is a bit tricky as I'm kind of stretched already. Morgan Rogers is one that I would like to have had many weeks ago, but he is quite expensive. I just prefer the sort of penalty takers, set piece takers. He's pretty much solely goals at the moment. So, yeah, he's one that I like, but just can't fit in budget-wise. And Tavernier at Bournemouth is another one I've got my eye on. He's only 5.5 million. Should be their penalty taker now, with Semenyo going to Man City. And yeah, it's just another budget option there if I do decide to cheapen one of my midfielders. So we'll see where we end up come the deadline next weekend. I've got obviously sort of 9-10 days to think about it. But I have already pressed the button, so it is active. It is being played. I'm just hoping to sort of get ahead of a few people, get the perfect team in place now for the next sort of 10 weeks, and then build up those transfers to have a nice little stock when I need to, make a few changes. So that's it for this one. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.